Hi everybody, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts, and this is an Answering Questions episode, and I got a bunch of questions from one person. Can you believe that? I mean, Brendan from Morris, New York, you actually just went all out on this one, didn't you? I mean, you got my work cut out for me here, buddy, but I'll see what I can do for you. Alright, your first question, I was just wondering, did you ever go fossil hunting since you were a little kid? What kind of fossils do you find? Well, Brandon, when I was a kid, I didn't really have the chance to actually go out fossil hunting because it was actually a real well, first of all, I was kind of really young, and also I couldn't afford to actually do it, and my parents couldn't afford to actually have me do fossil hunting. But even though my first chance of fossil hunting was actually basically when I was in college, just in college, and I'm still in college, and I'm still going through the pains of actually getting schoolwork done and all that kind of stuff. Well, basically, the fossil hunting experience is still a lot of fun, and you still have to have an eye for finding things, basically in the sedimentary rocks. I mean, there are fossils in igneous and metamorphic rocks, but they're very rare. But I mean, it's a really nice experience. Because I mean, I've basically all the quarries I've been to have been all dolostone and limestone, basically in the Ordovician and the Silurian. So, and that's basically the rocks that are normally found in Wisconsin. So, and I'm from Wisconsin, so basically we don't get any dinosaur fossils. Because all we got is basically a little bit of the Cambrian, some of the Ordovician, and the Silurian, and even the Devonian. The Devonian rock formations are actually in Milwaukee, and so I would love to go down to Milwaukee at some point and actually see if I can actually go into a quarry that is nearby, and I can actually kind of actually gander in there and kind of see what they got in there. And your next question here is, what are the dinosaur movies you watched, and do you ever saw Godzilla before? And in other dinosaur movies, well, basically, besides Jurassic Park and some of the more famous dinosaur movies, like Valley of Gwangi and all that kind of, and The Lost World, there are some underrated dinosaur movies that I've actually have seen, like We're Back, an animated dinosaur movie. Even Disney's Dinosaur is very underrated. Because I mean, how they did some of those dinosaurs is pretty amazing. Because they made them look accurate at that time. But the only nagging thing about it is basically you have dinosaurs that actually have lips in their talking, basically, but dinosaurs would have never have done that. So, but even though it's still debatable whether or not whether dinosaurs did have lips, but there's some evidence to support it, and there is some evidence that say not so fast. And there's an underrated dinosaur movie that I have seen. It's basically, I think it was made in the 60s or in the early 70s. It's called The Last Dinosaur, and it's a little cheesy, but even though at the time when I watched it, it was a really cool film, and it was kind of pretty interesting. And some of the other Lost World movies, I would actually say that like the best one is actually the 1925 version. The silent film version is always going to be the best one. And I got the chance to actually watch one of the newer dinosaur films called Dinosaur Island. Now I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about it. Like some people didn't like it because nearly all the dinosaurs have feathers, and they don't want feathers on their dinosaurs. But it's just that I have to say that it was pretty interesting. I gotta say, it was pretty interesting. I like I like the feathers on the dinosaurs. To me, it just shows that the movie is actually it's actually kept up to date with the science of paleontology, and basically is actually probably what dinosaurs probably did look like. Now, there are some people that didn't like the feathers on the Tyrannosaurus Rex, like some of the pink and the light colored blues. They thought it was too sparkly and like all that, and they called it Sparkly Rex. I tend to disagree, because you see, if you actually have a colorful, because you see, that would have been a male T-Rex in that film, and I would actually say that maybe it might look like that. You know, I don't think you can actually say that like dinosaurs are not scary with feathers. I mean, look at raptors. You know, I would be scared of a Deinonychus that actually have feathers than with scales. I mean, to me, I would, if the Deinonychus had scales, then I would say it looks like a weird looking lizard. You know, and I'd rather be scared of a Deinonychus with feathers, and I would be much more scared of a Tyrannosaurus Rex with feathers. Now, I don't think they would have actually had the full plumage of feathers like that in Dinosaur Island. I would actually say that the feathers would actually been a little bit on the top of the head, all along down to the back, and even onto the tail, and even the arms. The arms would have probably had the feathers as well. And then have I actually seen Godzilla before? Absolutely. I've actually seen many Godzilla movies in my time. Not only have I actually watched the most recent ones, I've actually have seen the ones that were made like in the 1960s and even the 70s, and some of them in the 80s. The 90s ones weren't not that great. If you actually look at the 90s versions of Godzilla, they're terrible. They're very terrible, because to me it just seems like they're trying to make Godzilla a little bit too much more of a villain than like it was in like some of the other films. I like Godzilla as the monster, as like the king of monsters that would defeat any monster in the world that comes around, even King Kong for that matter. You know, I would actually say that Godzilla to me is more of like a heroic monster, not a villainous monster. And one of the other questions is, I wanted to know more about Megaraptor, Australovenator, and Fukuiraptor. Which family of theropods they belonged? Neovenatorid or Tyrannosauridae? Well, what I've actually have seen out of the evidence of this, Megaraptor is still debatable. We still don't know where Megaraptor actually falls into this. Some paleontologists say it's actually a Spinosaurid, you know, because of the claw, because the claw looks very similar to a Spinosaurus and even a Baryonyx or even a Suchomimus claw. And some of them say it's a Neovenatorid dinosaur similar to Neovenator, or you know, all those kinds of theropods. And some of them have actually some paleontologists have concluded that it could be a Tyrannosaurid, but I don't see any evidence to support that, because you see, the bones just don't match up with a Tyrannosaur, and also Tyrannosaurs would have never had that gigantic claw. I mean, if they had that gigantic claw, then I would say that it probably would have been a weird looking Tyrannosaur, and this Tyrannosaur would have had really long arms, and Tyrannosaurs, they don't really have long arms. The only Tyrannosaurs that did have long arms were actually like the primitive Tyrannosaurs, like Guanlong, Dilong, and Tyrannus. You know, those are the kinds of Tyrannosaurs that actually did have the long arms, but as the Tyrannosaurs got bigger, as they evolved, the arms just kind of got smaller and smaller. So pretty much that way. Australovenator, I did see some of the I did see like some bones of it, some of the illustrations of the bones. To me, it is not a Tyrannosaur, because when I look at it, the skull doesn't match up with the Tyrannosaur, and also the arms don't match up with the Tyrannosaur. So I would actually say that it would probably be an Neovenatorid. Fukuiraptor probably would have been the same thing. So I would not consider some of those dinosaurs, tyrannosaurs at all. I think they're actually totally different species compared to tyrannosaurs. And your other questions here, I was wondering to know, what's your top 5 paleontology documentary series? Well, if I actually had to conduct my top 5, well, my number 1 paleontology documentary series is Walking with Dinosaurs. Walking with Dinosaurs to me is actually really, really good. Forget the movie. Just look at the series, and you actually look at the TV series, and you actually are just in awe of how they made this. You know, it's just amazing. Today would actually consider to be kind of kind of not really scientifically accurate, considering that that the science has changed a little bit since the late 90s. And let's see, my number 2, I would actually have a tie with number 2 between Jurassic Fight Club and When Dinosaurs Roamed North America, because you see, thank God for George Blasting, Dinosaur George Blasting, for actually creating Jurassic Fight Club. I thought that was a really cool series. I thought that they took the art of paleontology into, like, what would have actually happened if some of these animals actually met each other. You know, how would they actually fight each other? But even though, was there evidence to support this? Some yes, some no. So, but even though it's a really cool series. When Dinosaurs Roamed North America, that was a pretty cool series. Even though it was just it was only kind of actually debuted as a full-on, like, documentary movie, TV movie on Discovery Channel at that point. But it was really cool. I thought that was really cool, and to me, I thought that was pretty cool. To me, I thought they did the dinosaurs pretty well in that. And what would be my number 4 and number 5? That's a really good question, though. I kind of like Paleo World at number 5. If you've never seen Paleo World, go look on YouTube and actually look up Paleo World, and you actually find all these episodes that have been on the Learning Channel back in the 90s. The Learning Channel is not like it was back in the 90s, and I mean, number 4 is actually really tough. Number 4 is really tough. I mean, I really don't really have that much of a 5 or a 4. I mean, I can consider a Paleo World my number 4, because if you have a tie with number 2, you just get rid of 3. So that to me would have been be my top 4, not really top 5. I just considered 4 and 5 that pretty interesting about that, you know. But Brenda, thanks for sending me all those questions. I mean, you really actually got me going with some of these, and it's pretty cool that you're actually really interested of what I'm actually saying. Oh, by the way, I forgot about what kind of fossils I found when I actually did look into the quarries that are in Wisconsin. There's a lot of brachiopods. There's a lot of brachiopods in Wisconsin, even though the state fossil of Wisconsin is trilobites. So I didn't really get to see any trilobites that much, but there are worm burrows. There's stromatolites. There's some stromatolites. Those are those weird-looking dome-like bacteria-like things that you find. There's some stromatolites that are actually in Australia, and they're still around. But, and I mean, millions of years from now, it would actually that sediment that would actually bury those stromatolites would actually be found in Australia. We don't find any stromatolites anywhere else besides Australia, so that's amazing. And I mean, you also got some of the cephalopods, like the straight coned or the coiled coned ones. Those are pretty cool, and pretty much like crinoids and all those kinds of stuff. I mean, Wisconsin does actually have mastodons and mammoths that have been found, but they're very rare. So it's really kind of hard to see that. But when I went to South Dakota for a regional field trip, that was a lot of fun, and we did find some fossils there. We didn't collect. I mean, we did collect, but we didn't really collect any vertebrates. That's because, you see, collecting big vertebrates in regions where you can find vertebrate fossils is considered poaching fossils or stealing fossils, because if you're actually hunting on land that's being owned by somebody, you have to have permission to actually look into that person's property, and then basically tell them what you found, and then basically they'll look at it and they'll probably call a museum, and basically they'll come in and take a good look at it. But when there's public land that you can go on, you can collect, but even though with vertebrates you cannot collect. But if you do find shark teeth, you can collect shark teeth. Those are okay to actually collect. Some fish scales. I did find a small piece of fish vertebrae, but you can still collect that. Fish are easy to collect, so you can collect fish. It's just that big vertebrates you cannot collect. It's because, you see, those would actually have to be done by professionals. And alright, now that's it for now. Now next week will be a special episode, so make sure I get that episode in time as quick as possible. And so tell me what kind of dinosaur or prehistoric animal that you want me to talk about by actually going on the Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris, and tell me what kind of dinosaurs or any other prehistoric animals you want me to talk about. And also, you could still email me. You can still send me your questions about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life by emailing me, dinochris71@gmail.com, or otherwise you can go on the Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Like the page, you can also post your questions in the comment section on any Facebook post, but remember, keep your questions short and to the point. And also you can follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. That's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff there. And also, take care of the people around you. And also, for younger people out there, make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. Those are the best motivation you can have for a good education. It's very important to have a good education, because with a good education, you get a good job in the future. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys next week.